can you tell us about Andrew Gaff's injury and how severe it is?
Yeah, it's not severe. He came back from the same. He had an issue with his ankle over off season, and then it got a bit sore in a different area a few weeks ago, and then he got stood on the weekend. So that ankle's just copped a lot, and it just flared up in the last quarter on the weekend. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to give it a bit of a rest. So it'll be at least one to two, I would have thought.
Adam, no Luke Shuey this week. Is it just a case of he hasn't quite recovered from COVID or fitness, or what's the issue with him?
No, you're exactly right. He got out this morning. He went for a bit of a run, but speaking to him yesterday, and not going into too much detail on his medical position, but he's not right to travel and play a day after coming out of the restrictions, and then we've got a 6-day break next week as well. So it just, the risk was too high. So he's medically been ruled out. As much as I pushed a few buttons, it didn't get me too far.
Do you expect that he'll be right to go next week, or is it a case of wait and see with him?
No, absolutely, he'll be fine. Tom Barras went through the same thing last week. Every case is different. Everyone pulls up a little bit differently. So there'll be some guys who will come out of the protocols right to go straight away, day off, and then there'll be some guys that'll take 2 weeks to get back to full fitness. So that's what we've discovered. This is old news in other states. It's just what they're dealing with and what they've dealt with. But for us, yeah, we've worked through that now. We know what it looks like, and everyone's different.
So with him out, Gaffy out, Tim Kelly out, it's a fairly inexperienced midfield. What's your guidance to them, I guess, for this weekend?
Yeah, well, obviously Yo and Sheed on top of that. So it's Jack Redden, and he's probably the most experienced mid we've got. And we've got some opportunity for some young players. I mean, some of the guys that'll play, Xavier O'Neill and Connor West, Nashi, Jackson Nelson, those guys are going to get a chance to have a really good look at some midfield time. So, we're using it as an opportunity. We're getting players back. We're not fully there yet. We've still got a few mids missing, but we've got an opportunity to grow some of the younger players and give them a look, and we'll get to see where they're at as well. So, yeah, as much as it's not ideal, and they'll come back. They're not too far away. I think next week there'll be a fair few players coming back, along with maybe Oscar Allen in the next couple of weeks and Jamie Cripps. So there's some players coming back, but at the moment we're not quite settled, and that's just reality, and we've got to be up for the fight.
Adam, in terms of you talk about that opportunity for young guys, and you want to know where your list is at and where they're sort of going. How much of it is a fine balance between going on the attack in that midfield battle and then also potentially being a bit defensive and playing a role in terms of trying to get an understanding of what these players can and can't do in the big time?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, what's our style of play? What's our brand? What's our identity? Stuff I've been talking about for a few weeks now. It's been a difficult one to put your finger on just through personnel and change. So we need to try and play our way and keep growing. And if that hurts, it hurts. But we need to, keep exploring playing our way. And there's only a certain amount of ways you can play in the midfield. It's pretty straightforward. So you've got to try and be tough in the contest, connect well with your rucks, and run hard. So that'll be the style that we're looking for from our mids. And can they play with confidence? Can they be brave? Can they defend well? They're the things that obviously will be a challenge at stages, but they'll learn on the job.
Jackson Nelson did a stopping job on Andy Brayshaw and did it to effect as well. Do you look at sending him again to one of Collingwood's prime movers?
Yeah, we'll look at it. Yeah, we know he's done it before and he did it well in the first half last week. So those things will little tweaks that perhaps maybe we wouldn't be doing that if we had a full complement. If it helps us win, we'll do it. So we're definitely looking into it. We thought it was a good move last week, but we get halfway through the third quarter and we're 35 points down. So it's not the be all and end all, but if it helps us win, we'll do it.
Liam Duggan's role, we saw him play a fair a bit of midfield time as well against North Melbourne, first up after that knee injury. Does he get a run in there as well this week? Obviously, the exclusion of Josh Rothen sort of means maybe a bit more back time though.
Yeah, it might have looked like that watching it on the telly, but he played back against North. He must have got high up the ground. But he played back, yeah, and he was on managed minutes coming off a significant knee injury and playing one game, resting through COVID, and then coming back. So he'll slot back into the back line, but that's not to say we can't play him through the midfield. He's done it before, but he'll start back.
And the decisions for Harry Edwards and Josh Rotham obviously omitted. Can you just sort of talk us through, I guess, the reasons for their exclusion this week?
Yeah, look, Harry's working through his career. He's a 200 centimetre key defender, and along with Barrass and McGovern, there's going to be times where that's a real asset for us, playing all three. And there'll be times where, the team we play don't have as many tools and we need to adjust. So he's a victim of that this week. So that's something that, we'll work through. We'll keep exploring playing those three tools down back at stages. And Roth just got squeezed out with Duggan coming back. So it's a pretty straightforward in for out. And whilst I don't think he's at great form, I think he's playing his part, and he's coming off the protocols last week. It'd be a little bit unfair just to say he's in bad touch. It's just we want to get Duggan back in the side.
Adam,
just
what
on
was it?
Samo Petrevski-Seaton as well, that calf issue, is that sort of going to be multiple weeks as well, you envisage?
No, I've said it twice now after the game, saying the best, one of the good things is we've got no injuries, and we had 3 on Monday. So we think it's just a week. He trained today. There's a little strain on the calf. It's nothing big, but he'll be back next week, we think, along with several other players as well. So looking forward to that.
Adam, who else are you thinking for next week that you'll get back?
I haven't gone into too much detail because I'm really keen on putting our best foot forward this week, to be honest. But there'll be a number of players. There's probably up to 5 or 6 next week. We'll get back. Off the top of my head, I can't go through them all. But obviously Luke will be available, and Tim, and so there'll be some players back. But priority at the moment's tomorrow.
And just is even someone like Greg Clark or Jamie Cripps getting closer for next
Yep.
week?
Yeah, all those guys train today, so we'll look at that come Monday.
And just on the ruck setup, you picked Dixon over Bailey Williams this week. Can you take us through that decision?
Yeah, look, it was a tough one, but Bailey coming out of his health and safety protocols, and just seeing what we produced last week. Normally you say, if you make 4 or 5 changes, it's really hard and difficult to win. So having 13 or 14 and then 12, we probably just wanted to limit the ins and outs. So I'm actually not sure how many we made this week. It was probably 5 or 6. So it's getting to the point where we're trying to get back to some normality and synergy with the side. And whilst we think Bailey's going to be a really good player for us, we just thought him coming out of his protocols, we thought Dicko held up his own for a 4-game player. We thought we'd see him for another week and see how he goes.
Just on Collingwood, firstly, what have you made of their form? Obviously, with the new coach, a bit of a different style, and also their midfield group will be a bit different this week without Dicko and Adams. So, what are you expecting from them?
Oh, they're definitely playing a new system, as we all have seen. And if you had to compare it to anyone, and I know it's a bit unfair to say it's exactly like this. It looks similar to a Richmond sort of brand over the last few years, where it's high octane, chaotic, pressure, front half type of football that embraces the contest. So they've been really exciting to watch. It's clicked pretty quickly for them. They're missing a couple of players, but I think they'll just bring a similar player in and they'll play the same role. So yeah, it's going to be a real challenge for us. Obviously the belief's high. The young kids are playing well, but the biggest thing we've noticed as a coaching group is that the senior players are all fit and available and they're playing their part. So we need the same from our senior boys as well.
Adam, what was it like at match committee this week when you got to discuss form as opposed to just who's available?
No, we pretty much discussed who's available still. We've got two. The midfield, I suppose, for us is a little bit of a challenge. We've got a couple of Waffle top-up boys to travel with us. And the availability is getting better, absolutely, but they're young, tall players that, a couple had opportunities to play against North, but they're not quite ready for senior AFL football. And a couple of other players who are coming back are ready for a half at Waffle. So, having 27, 26 players available is probably not a big selection issue for us. It's when you've got 38, 39, when that's some real good problems on that one. So we're not far off that, but this week wasn't that difficult at the selection table.
And what are your expectations for Collingwood?
Well, like I said before, the way they play is we expect them to play that brand, and we keep trying to work on our identity and our brand, but we're going over to win, if that's the question. We haven't taken our eye off the ball on that. We're not giving up at all. We see it as an opportunity to grow, but every week I'd like to think that we're having a go, and we're going over there to win.
Is there any frustration at this point, Simo? I know it's an opportunity for these young players, but does it just get to that point where it's, what's next?
No, I think we're in a space where it's not denial. We understand what's going on. A lot of it we can't control, and the cluster of injuries we got in the pre-season, a lot of them are collision injuries, that we can't avoid, and then COVID hits us. So that's reality. But no, it's a moment in time. So we still think there's plenty of games left in the season for us to be part of some wins and part of the action. So clock's ticking. We know that. We need to start getting on the board pretty quickly. But no, we're not. We're in a reasonably good space in terms of, and I've said this a number of times, the culture, the belonging, the identity, all those things, the connection with our group. That's priority. And then, we need to start winning as well. So that's the next step.
Adam, how many emergencies are you taking?
I think we'll take 2 plus the sub. So we're playing tomorrow. So unless we get hit by a cluster when we arrive in Melbourne, it's not far off what we normally do. So maybe 1 or 2 extras, they'll come over.
And just on the big group of players that came into the Derby off COVID, a week down the track, have you seen any improvement at all sort of in them this week, physically?
It's been hard to tell with 6-day break, so we haven't done a lot. Though, we were disappointed the way some of the game played out last week, regardless of player availability or protocols. We think we can play better. But they were a little bit down on output with their touch, with their reaction time, and with the data. So I'd anticipate that'll be a lot better this week. But some guys come out, like I said earlier, ready to go, and some guys come out with a bit of lag. So hopefully we've got more in the feeling good space than the lag space.
And just the double 6-day break, as if you didn't have enough challenges, does that come at a tricky time for you?
Oh, that's just footy. No, we're all good. That's fine. We just adapt during the week, and that's not an issue for us at all. And I'd like to think this is going to help build our resilience as we go. Identify the challenge and get on with it. That's probably been our motto within, and hopefully you guys have seen that with us and how we act.
Simo, just on the players who have had COVID, without going into detail, does that mean that they can no longer be counted as close contacts, and when you get them back, you should get a few months where they are free to play regardless, or are you unsure about those circumstances?
I'm a bit of both. I think I'm sure, but I don't want to say I am. I think it's like the rest of everyone in society. Your freedoms increase once you've gone through it, is what I'm assuming. So, but you just don't know with this COVID. Things can change pretty quickly. But at the moment, I think you're allowed some freedoms and you have a bit of immunity compared to what you liked before you have it. So. And that's why we're taking extra precautions here compared to the freedom that everyone else has in the other states.
And obviously, like you said, it's been hard to gauge where you're at the moment, but 3 losses to start the season. What do you say to supporters who are, Eagles fans have always had high expectations, who are showing a bit of frustration?
Well, hopefully everything you've heard us talk about in the last 3 weeks is given clarity. So the message is the same. Tom, yeah, I don't, if they've been listening, and hopefully they have, and we're trying our hardest, and we're dealing with some issues that we don't want to use as excuses, but there's definitely reasons for the synergy piece, and perhaps as much as we don't want to blame it on our losses, I think it's contributed to a certain degree. And you only got to look at Port, they're missing 3 or 4 players and it looks completely different. So, we're probably 8 players out of our best 22 short at the moment, but we don't want to use that as an excuse. So, yep, I'm sure they're along for the ride and they understand, but they also expect us to win like we do.
Adam, Craig McRae said this week that there's now only 5 blokes on their list that have not had COVID. So obviously, most of that was in the summer, obviously. But I mean, is that a worry to hear that perhaps there's more to come for you?
Oh yeah, this is not new, guys. Like this has been going on for a few years. We're obviously as a state a little bit behind where the rest of the country is, but no, that's a common knowledge. That most of the clubs have gone through it earlier in the year. December, January is probably the time that most of the clubs went through it, and you talk to anyone in the industry that went through it, it wasn't just a 1 week and it's all good. It's a several week issue. But by the end of January, they were sort of clear. So we're that's phase, but that's not to say that's a reason for anything other than what we expect. It's just happening to us at the moment. Fremantle have obviously not in the same space, but we're just going through it at the moment. That's just what we've got to deal with, and we can't make that the main story with us. We've got to make sure it's football and it's growth and it's opportunity and it's winning. So that's my challenge, to try and keep the narrative on the right path.
Adam, on the football front, Jack Darling seemed as though he was a bit more himself last week. How far off do you think he is until he sort of recaptures his best form again?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I feel like we saw some signs on the weekend. It's been 2 weeks. It's probably a different looking team that he's dealing with, albeit there's some familiar faces down forward and down back. So, yeah, sometimes he's a victim of what's happening up the ground. But I thought we saw some. If the last 5 minutes we start like that, the first 5 minutes he'll be fine. So it's amazing. The game's over. We're well and truly out of it. But just a bit of confidence in his game, getting a goal on the board and all that sort of stuff. I'm assuming each week you'll see improvement. That's the plan.
Adam, just quickly, the 3 guys coming out of protocols, Duggan, Rioli and Barras, are they good to go? They don't need to do any tests before tomorrow's game? No,
they're all good. We know we might not get the absolute maximum out of those guys, but 3 is better than 10.